Imagine this. Imagine you've worked hard your entire life. You've been working the script that society handed you. You've been working until you turn 65 because that's what the normal age is for retirement. That's when you're supposed to slow down. You're supposed to start enjoying your life. And we're told that at 65 we can start collecting Social Security, and we're supposed to begin living our golden years. But there's a problem with that. Welcome back to another episode of Sweat Talk. My name's Chad. And today I want to talk about retiring at the age of 65 and how that's a huge mistake. I've shared with you guys before, I'm retiring at 50. That's my end goal. That's my number. 50 years old. I got 4.5 years till I turn 50 and I'm done. I started making these YouTube videos as a retirement project. This channel is supposed to be my retirement project. The way that I see it is, if I start now at 45, by the time I'm 50 and I retire, that just means that I let go of my JOB, because I don't think we should ever truly retire. We always have to have something to do. We have to be able to achieve something greater than us and help us with our purpose every day. The way that I see it is, retiring at 65 is not just a small mistake or a small misstep. It's a huge mistake. I've got some statistics and some numbers, some averages that might open your eyes, because it's things that we don't think about. Because most people don't realize that waiting till 65 to retire might be too late. We just accept it as gospel because that's a script that society has given us. At 62 and a half or 65, mostly 65, that's when us in America get to retire. That's when we're able to draw pensions, Social Security, Medicare, all that. Social Security and Medicare are said to be insolvent by the year 2032 if the government keeps spending the way that it is currently. And what that means is, by the time most of us turn 65, there's nothing left. We can't depend on that. We cannot depend on Social Security being there when we retire. We can't depend on anybody to save us when we retire. Here's a harsh reality. The average age for a cancer diagnosis is 66 years old. And if you let that sink in for a minute and you realize that you're supposed to be living your best life after 65 when you retire, but instead you're staring down the barrel of one of the worst experiences that you could possibly face. But it doesn't stop there either. Hello.
Sorry.
The average age for cognitive decline for men is 71.5. For women, it's 75 years old. And that's the average. And there's so many other chronic diseases that go along with this. Diabetes, congestive heart failure. The list goes on and on and on forever. And most of them, the average age of onset, the average age that somebody gets a life-altering, life-changing diagnosis of a deathly disease or illness is 66.1 years old here in the Americas. So think about that. 66.1 years old. Hello. So if you're living and you end up being an average life, on average, 1.1 years after you retire at the societal norm age of 65, you're going to suffer from a life-changing, life-altering diagnosis or illness. So what I'm getting at is the concept of retiring at 65, it's an outdated number. It's an outdated concept or idea. The concept of retiring at that age was actually designed in the early 19th century when people's average lifespans was much shorter. And back then people didn't live much past 65. We're living in a different time. We're living in an entirely different world now. Over the last decade though, is the first time in history that the average life expectancy has actually seen a decline. Meaning, if the average person lives to the age of, say, 75, for example, it's now declining the average age of 74. The thing is people are living longer now. Maybe I should say people are surviving longer now, because are they really living? If you have to stay hooked up to a dialysis machine and you're 70 years old just because you're living longer, just because you're alive longer, does that mean that you're living longer? The reason why I'm going over this is, You know, the other day I was saying that I was sick, you know, I wasn't feeling good or whatever. And it turns out it was COVID. I don't know if I can say that or not on a YouTube video anymore. But I can't help but to think back to when my mother passed away. Christmas Eve, 2019. She was 64 years old and she died from Alzheimer's. She was diagnosed when she was 56 years old and she worked up until she couldn't anymore. She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and she still continued to go to work, and she worked until she absolutely couldn't function, and the stress that she endured every day at work was too overwhelming for her. She suffered from early onset Alzheimer's disease. 9 years later, she passed away. And I can't help but to think back to that. It was when my mother passed away just a few months later. It's when that virus came and essentially ravaged the world. Everybody lost their minds over the cough. And everything in the world changed shortly following my mother's passing. You know, I mean, I'm fine, I'm good. The nose is still a little bit stuffy, but it was even different this time from the last time that I caught it. It just makes me think back to all the panic that was caused and how it almost seemed like for a moment people's eyes were awakened. They were awakened to the truth, and they realized that just how short life is. People seem to actually value their life for a moment and value each other. But at the same instance, that same illness essentially tore the world apart and separated us as a species. But if you wait till you're 65, you're gambling on your health, your energy, your vitality. You're gambling that all that stuff is going to be fine at 65. Because we all know plenty of 65-year-olds that are active and doing well. My stepfather and my biological father, both of them are doing extremely well. It's a tragedy to see people that work until the day they die, because they're following the script and the narrative that they were told and taught their entire lives of what the ideal age or what the expected age of retirement actually is. In my opinion, it's a lie. And truthfully, the statistics show that the odds aren't in your favor, that at 65 you will be able to enjoy your vitality, your energy, or your life. Because you're truly at the age of 66. At the age of 66, you're at the prime age for a life-altering diagnosis of an illness. You've spent your entire life working towards this, working towards living a dream, but instead, it turns out that dream is nothing more than a nightmare that you can't wake up from. It's our health. Our health is a ticking clock. It's a ticking time bomb. Our life is a ticking time bomb, because tomorrow is never promised. Nothing is ever guaranteed. That's why preparing for retirement early isn't just important, but it's necessary. If you're in your 20s, your 30s, it's essential that you figure out your financial situation so that you can find that happy medium between enjoying your youth, the hard work, and preparing for your future. When you're young, you have time. You have time to let that compound interest grow. You have the ability to invest smaller amounts of money, not even have to rearrange your life, and make gigantic gains forward to prepare for your future. Hello. If you're able to get your mind in the right place, you can see the earlier you can retire, the earlier and the longer you'll get to live and truly live and enjoy your life with less worry, less stress, and focus more on what's important in life. If you're able to retire at 50 like I am, that's an additional 15 years that I get back. But I'm only able to do that because I focused on my future in my late 20s. I knew that there was no way that things could keep going the direction that they were going. My spending habits weren't going to be conducive to my retirement at an earlier age, allowing me to live the life that I truly want. That 15 extra years that you got back, that you're able to buy back by retiring at 50, you're able to make those count, and it'll all be worth it. Trust me, it will all be worth it. And you will thank yourself in the future for setting yourself up. Your future self will be able to look back and be like, yeah, thank you, younger self. You won't wish that you had a time machine to go back and do things over, do things differently. Imagine being able to use that extra 15 years to go explore different countries, learn new skills or hobbies, make memories with loved ones. Life is, in my opinion, life is about making memories to begin with. The consumption and the stuff, it doesn't serve you. When I say that, I don't mean that you shouldn't buy nice stuff. I don't mean that you shouldn't own nice things, because I strongly believe that we should all own nice things. We should buy nice things, but we need to analyze what the true cost of those things is. We need to make sure that we can truly afford them. We're not borrowing a bunch of money to afford them. We're not accumulating a bunch of debt so that we can buy that stuff that ends up bringing stress into our lives. When you buy nice things and you can truly afford them, they won't bring you stress. They can actually bring you joy. It's at the point where you can actually afford to truly buy something. You can afford to truly obtain those nice things. You'll respect them more. You'll appreciate them more. You know, Seneca said, it's not that we have a short time to live, but it's that we waste most of it. We lose sight on those things that actually mean the most to us and focus more on stuff. We stop creating those memories, or we remove the ability to create those memories because we can't afford to make any new memories since we had to have that stuff that we can't afford. When you turn 65, there's going to be more financial pressure. If you're not able to take care of your health in your earlier years, when you turn 65 and your piss poor habits start catching up to you at 65, you're going to end up going to the hospital, dealing with co-pays, insurance. You're not going to be able to earn money the same way that you could in your younger years. Those corporations are just going to throw you to the wayside. Your usefulness will seem to be used up in a lot of situations. And if you start planning in your earlier years, it's not only going to be useful in the future, but it's also smart. But the key to that is making those intentional decisions and living your life intentionally. I guess to break it down even simpler is you can either spend your life accumulating things, or you can spend your life accumulating memories. It is possible to find a balance. But unfortunately, for a lot of us, accumulating the things ends up preventing us from creating the memories. Just think about what your life would look like if you were able to achieve financial freedom by like 50, 55. How does that change the outlook of your life? Do you think by the age of 50, 55, you would be able to live your purpose? You're still somewhat young. You're potentially healthy. At least you're more likely to be healthy. You still somewhat have a youthful side to you. You're not just living for the weekend or some distant future life or lifestyle retirement. You just knocked 15 years off of that overwhelming goal, that potentially overwhelming age or end scenario that you've been taught to believe is just miraculously going to happen. It's like we've been taught that as soon as we turn 65, well, I mean, you turn 65, you retire, right? Nobody tells us how. Nobody talks about the fact that most 65-year-olds didn't plan enough finances for their future. They just expected at the age of 65, Social Security would pay for them to survive. They would always have Medicare. They could spend their way to oblivion throughout their entire lives. And at that magic number, once they hit that magic number, all of a sudden, everything was going to be rainbows and unicorns until they got there. When they found out that was all a lie. And those years, if it's not planned out right, they aren't so golden. If you're able to retire at 50, it's about mental health too. You're going to be a lot more stable. You don't have to worry about going to that 9-to-5 job anymore. You don't have to worry about going to that asshole boss, sitting in that miserable freaking commute, and spending your entire life making somebody else wealthy. You'll be able to regain the mental health that you once had that sometimes seems to be slowly fading away. Hello. Hello. But to actually achieve that early on in your life, you're going to have to learn how to cut down on unnecessary expenses. The bad spending habits that you might have. Maybe you have like a Amazon addiction. I actually read that is a thing. People are addicted to buying stuff off of Amazon. I guess it just must be another one of those dopamine things. Is you have to learn how, the bottom line is you have to learn how to live below your means, which essentially means don't accumulate any debt, especially in today's economy, today's society. If you have debt and you're constantly having to pay that back, you're not going to be able to get ahead, and you're not going to be able to invest wisely, which I would say is another point Probably the next point to focus on is being able to invest wisely. And it doesn't have to be tons of money. You don't need to know the next best thing. You don't need to put your life savings into crypto. 20 bucks here, 100 bucks there, 1,000 bucks here, 50 bucks there. If you're one of the people that's able to get a tax return at the end of the year, you don't owe, go throw that into a growth stock mutual fund of some sort. Let that grow. It's money you never had. Stop using it to buy shit you don't need. Invest it instead. Let that grow and help you in the future. You need to prioritize your health now. Focus on your nutrition, get out there and exercise, go for a walk. And know that if you don't prioritize it now, it's only a matter of time before it begins catching up to you. Mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. All of those will eventually catch up to you if you're making piss poor decisions in your earlier years. It's too easy to believe that, well, that's a long ways down the road. Like I've said before, the days are long, but the decades are short. As time goes faster as we age. The older we get, the faster time goes. Try to figure out some sort of passive income. Try to figure out something that you can do in the meantime. Start a YouTube channel. That's why I'm here, right? I got 4.5 years till I retire, but I'm planning ahead approximately 5 years until that day. Because I believe that inside of 5 years, I believe this YouTube channel will become some sort of, it might be, I'm going to look at it more as an active form of income, but some of it will be passive income as well. This video that I'm making right now could be paying me in 5 more years. The videos that I've made in the past or that I'm going to be making in the future could passively be paying me in the future as well. But either way, the idea of this channel is to help me in the future so that I can actually achieve that goal. And I don't have to worry when I turn 50 if I haven't made my financial number or my financial goal. Try to shift your mindset. Try to look further out into the future. Teach yourself how to look further out than just 5, maybe 10 years. It's a necessity, it's essential. I understand it can be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to think about 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. But if you're able to look at it like, I get paid Friday, or whatever day. So I get paid Friday. So Friday, I get to pay myself first. Friday, I'm going to put money into my investment account. And every Friday, or every paycheck, pay yourself first. Pay your future self first. Just think about it. Is your future self going to be able to look back at where you're sitting right now and what your habits are and be proud of where you're at right this minute? Are you going to be able to look back and say, man, I crushed it when I was 25, or I crushed it when I was 45. I did something. I did what I was supposed to. And son of a bitch, it paid off for me. Are you going to be able to do that? Yeah, I'm not here trying to give advice, really. I'm here just offering up my experience, my thoughts, my perspective on how I see things and share things that have worked for me throughout my life so that hopefully others can benefit from my experience. Maybe they don't have to go through the things, the bad mistakes or the hard times that I went through, and I can save somebody just a little bit of heartache or headache, stress. Check this out. What do you think? Isn't that, oh my God, absolutely beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. Anyway, that's all I got for today, guys. I appreciate you showing up. I hope you're showing up for yourselves. I appreciate all the support you guys are giving me. I appreciate all the support you're showing for the channel. It means the world to me. And I hope all of you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.